Good morning. Thank you all for joining us today for the second part of our three-part series, Staying Motivated and Striving for Success. My name's Abby Laditan and I'm the Head of Marketing for the UK at GoDaddy, and I'll be your host for the session today. I live by the Essex coast. I've been with GoDaddy for nearly 2 years and I also run a food delivery app business. So I've introduced myself, so now we'd like to hear from you. Please just take a moment just to drop your name and location and an introduction of your business into the chat so we can get to know each other a little bit better. Great. It's great to see so many business users from across the UK spanning a wide range of entrepreneurial talents. This morning, we'll be sharing some expert advice with you and unique GoDaddy insight on staying motivated and striving for success in your business. But before we get on to that, let's take care of a little housekeeping. We expect the session to last about 60 minutes, but as this is a live event, we could run a little over time, but I promise not to hold you for too long. Our first speakers today will be Ed Clancy, OBE, and Phil Kelly from performance consultancy business Pursuit Line. They'll be sharing their top tips and advice to empower you to achieve the highest levels of performance. Then we'll hear from Samuel Wade, one of our GoDaddy experts. He'll be sharing advice on taking your business to the next level and getting your website seen online. After that, we'll have a Q&A so you can ask any questions you may have. Please feel free to submit your questions throughout the webinar and we'll get through as many as we can later on. We want this session to be as interactive as possible. So we're also going to be running a few quick fire polls throughout the webinar so we can learn a bit more about you, your business, what you're interested in, and where you're at on your business journey. The question will pop up on your screen and you can select from the multiple choice answers that you see. In fact, let's quickly run a poll now. So the first poll today is, when did you launch your business online? You have about 30 seconds to respond. So tell us when you launched your business online. So the options that we have are, I haven't yet, which is completely fine. This will help you get on your way. In the last 6 months, in the last year, in the last 2 years, or more than 2 years ago. Okay, I can see the votes coming in. Quite a significant amount of you haven't launched the business yet. Actually, an even split between having not launched the business and launched more than 2 years ago. So a really great spread of businesses here. The good news is that no matter where you're at on your business journey, this webinar is designed to give you guidance and advice to level up online while staying motivated and focused on the road ahead. So, why are we here today? Well, we know that the last couple of years, and indeed this year so far, have been difficult for small business owners. But also, we know that this hasn't stopped you. For example, in the first half of last year, 2022, more than 90 new ventures were set up every hour in the UK. And the number of female-led businesses alone is growing by more than a third every year. Entrepreneurs have also learned to pivot. More than 50% of people have learned a new skill recently and are evolving their businesses to work in an ever-changing market. Undoubtedly, the future will bring its own hurdles, but with the right tools and mindset, the future remains bright for UK small businesses. At GoDaddy, we've helped people succeed online for over 20 years, and we're here and committed to supporting our customers as they take the next step on their business journeys. Let's do another quick poll on this subject. So our second poll, how are you feeling at this point in your business journey? Again, you'll have about 30 seconds to answer. So the options you have are fully motivated and engaged, motivated but nervous about the road ahead, a little lacking in motivation, stressed and in need of support and guidance, or unsure. So we have a wide mix here. The majority is split between a little lacking motivation and fully motivated and engaged. So again, two different ends of the spectrum. Yeah, really interesting spread of results there. Rest assured, it's perfectly normal and understandable to be feeling negative about it or unmotivated, particularly in such an uncertain economic climate. But the good news is, our speakers today are here to share some expert advice and guidance to help prepare you for the road ahead. One way to help stay focused and prepared is to keep up with the latest business news in the UK. We highly recommend registering for the B Daily Bulletin emails. You'll receive timely news, personal development advice, and opinion content right to your inbox each weekday morning. Visit the link in the chat now to sign up. Now, I'd like to introduce our first speakers today. We have Ed Clancy, OBE, and Phil Kelly from Pursuit Line. As a three times Olympic, 6 times world cycling champion, and veteran of 4 Olympic Games, a bit of a mouthful, but highly accoladed, it's safe to say that Ed Clancy, OBE, knows a little something about dealing with stress and achieving an elite standard of performance. After retiring from cycling, Ed reached out to his performance coach of the last 7 years, Phil, and then they started Pursuit Line together, a business that offers Olympic standard talks, workshops, and consultancy. An award-winning business owner and tech presenter, Phil lives and breathes performance. Having designed and delivered successful training packages across various industries worldwide, he now spends most of his time within business development and consulting through his company Pronoctis, who work with large corporates in the performance space. Through Pursuit Line, their mission is to help businesses engage in high-performing environment with a positive culture, being happy, having fun, achieving their goals, and constantly learning. I think they're going to be a great addition to this webinar. And with that, I'll hand over to Ed and Phil. Welcome both.
Hi, Abby. Thanks very much for that. That was a great little introduction. Thank you. We've got to live up to some sort of expectations now. Well, Ed has anyway, with his 3 Olympic gold medals. Hi, Ed. How are you doing?
Hey, Phil. Thanks, Abby. Hey, everyone, and thank you for tuning in. I'm good. Thanks, Phil. Had a nice start to the day and looking forward to the call.
Yeah, it should be good. And I just want to clarify that we've both got sort of a brick background. So we're not in the same house and we're just in separate rooms. We are quite a few miles apart. So it's not like a camera trick, all right. As we can see then, so moving forward, we know that, can you imagine sort of representing your county at something or even like your home nation of England, Scotland, Wales, Ireland, or whatever country you're in, and then going on to represent something as great as Great Britain just once in a major competition. And then you take it a stage further and you manage to qualify and get selected for the Olympic Games. And there you are packing your bags. You just imagine that feeling and then get into the Olympic Games and not only just performing well, you actually go and win your gold medal, your gold target. And then can you imagine doing it 3 times and then actually going to your 4th Olympic Games? So that spans a career of 16 to 18 years. So Ed really does know what he's talking about. And today it's my job and my role to sort of pull that out into some theories and concepts that hopefully will resonate with what you're feeling right now, but it maybe even help you in the future. But don't forget to use these tools to reflect back on the past of what we've been through the last 2 or 3 years in terms of helping us to make sense of what we've gone through and picking up on those habits of behaviors. And the first thing we're going to do is get into some of the content. So one of the most important things for performance and understanding where you are as an individual or as a company and where you want to go is locating yourself. So we're talking here about self-regulation, Ed, and I know that you and I have worked on this greatly over the last 6 or 7 years, and I'm going to bring you in shortly, but just let me explain this. So a very simple way of calibrating where you are right now is using this tool. So we talk about being above or below the line. Now, we've got to understand that human behavior, we are emotional creatures and we have good and bad days, and we do get impacted by other people's sort of behaviors, their decision making, the market changing, we've put a pitch in for some work and we haven't won it. We're naturally going to have a negative response. So what that means is that we're below the line. The risk is that we stay below the line. We start demonstrating these things that are highlighted there. We start being closed off. We sort of being inactive. We don't take action. We become closed off and defensive. So therefore, we become a bit more negative minded. And we start actually doubling down and being committed to being right. So it's our way or the highway, where what I will tell you is a lot of the high performing people I've worked with, I've coached, and the large organizations that we've turned around, is they learn very quickly that the more time we can spend above the line and recalibrate ourselves and our teams and our goals to being above the line, the very quickly we become successful and we get progress. So it's about being open, being curious, really being interested in what's happening with the other person on the other end and being committed to learning. So mistakes happen. We don't get that piece of work. Our bosses don't listen to us. The market changes. But we have this initial emotional response as human beings. But eventually, over time, we come back to the same place, which is the question of what are we going to do about it? And sometimes when we're below the line and we're a little bit down, that element of time is elongated, probably a little bit longer than it needs to be. So it could be days, weeks, months. And the quicker and the sooner that we can get to ourselves above the line, then the better it is for us and certainly for our businesses, because time, organizations, and especially money likes speed. So the speed of which we can get ourselves back above the line, the better it is for everybody. Now, there's a little premise there around some of the things we utilize at Pursuit Line. I want to bring in Ed. Let's talk about your cycling career, Ed. Can you identify some times where you were below the line and also when you were above the line?
Yeah, absolutely. As you know, Phil, this is one of my favorite high performance principles. And there's probably people on the line that have seen this before, or they might have seen this being labeled as growth mindset as opposed to fixed mindset. And, for myself, a big part of it is simply having a willingness to learn. And, when you're involved in elite sport, which I have been in, I guess one of the highest performing Olympic teams, for a long, long time now. It's a great place to be, but what you often see is that you'll get athletes that were very, very, very good as a junior, and they'll go on to do the first senior races, and again, they'll be the best out of the bunch, and the career progresses and so on, and they might go through a world championships or even Olympics, and that's great, but all of a sudden it's starting to form these thought patterns in the background that they are indeed, very, very good at the job. And, you'll see the same thing in business. People will go on, a lot of people on the line that will be listening now are go-getters, high achievers, very academic, straight A's, A-levels, university, which is great. I'm not trying to demonize that. But what is dangerous and what I've seen is that as soon as this belief that you are indeed brilliant almost crystallizes this belief that you know everything there is to know, that is one of the biggest barriers to progress that I've seen. And I'm ashamed to say I've probably been there myself as well, Phil. I think as a 28-year-old after London Olympics, you kind of sat there and you have a fair bit of weight in the building and credibility. And as soon as you kind of lose that willingness to learn and keep looking for the answers and keep moving forward and be humble and vulnerable enough to sort of say, you know what, we're here, but we've still got to keep looking. We've still got to keep learning. And I think as soon as you lose that, it's quite a dangerous place to be.
Yeah, 100%. And I think where my mind went to when you were chatting there, Ed, was sometimes, especially if it's like a service provider organization, what tends to happen is you've done that job somewhere else. So you've been within an organization, you've been working for somebody else, and then sort of a light bulb goes off and says, well, actually, I think I could go and do this better myself, and I think I can do it my way. And it's just a standard sort of path to setting up your own organizations because you've built that belief. But what I do find sometimes is that when you start a business, it's extremely lonely for sure, and it's scary and it's risky. That's why the majority of people do stay on a payroll job for sure. But I think if you've got that willingness to learn and that ability to stay above the line and that ability to collaborate with other people as well and have good active conversations and share your pain and share your thoughts and your feelings, that's where the magic is really, is that ability to move forward. Because however we think we're unique, all of us as individuals are not. Other people have been there. And what I do find is that if you've got a specific set of knowledge within an organization or within your business, I think it's a bit of ego that keeps hold of it as well. And what I mean by that is that we always want to be involved in everything. And as we start scaling the business, we actually got to realize that the technical side of the business, we've got to let that go. So as we work our way up, I've gone through it the last 2 years, to be honest. All I've done day in, day out is trying to get myself out of the business. So, I want my team to say to me, get out of the way, you're in the way. Because that shows that they got the confidence there above the line. They can see where they need to drive it. And having that humility to realize that actually you're not the person to drive that forward is really, really important. And I know, Ed, that, we've talked about you going to 4 Olympic Games and you had gold in the first 3. there was definitely that element of humility in that fourth one, in the highest stage of Olympics, of you making that decision of, I need to get out of the way here. Could you quickly share that story with us?
Yeah, so I did 4 Olympic cycles in my time with the Great Britain cycling team, and in my final hurrah, we kind of went through lockdown and all the sort of ups and downs mentally with that, and the grand age of 36 as an athlete, we made it to Tokyo 2021, and everything been going really well, to be fair, up until that point. And I'd made the team. We were performing well, even in the holding camp a couple of weeks prior. Everything was going great, and we'll probably get onto this at some point later on in the conversation. But I had a back operation a few years ago, and the problems were reoccurring. And I was a leader in the team at that point, and rather than sort of standing up and giving it the big I am, the truth be told, it was going to be the best thing for the team if I stood down and got out of the way and let one of the youngsters take my place, if you could ever call it that. But yeah, it wasn't the most enjoyable way to sort of buy out of your career, but it wasn't an easy decision. But in hindsight, it was right.
Yeah, it's always hindsight. And I specifically remember you ringing me from Tokyo, say that, like, I'm thinking about bailing out, and I think this is it. This is me done. It's retired. And very much as the coach, the conversation I was trying to sort of paint and trying to get you to think about was how you were going to think and feel 3 or 6 months down the line, because everything's really raw. It's that emotional thing where, you would obviously generally feel a bit sorry for yourself and frustrated. That's not the way you wanted to bow out, because it's all about the fireworks and the champagne, isn't it, of going out as a fairy tale. But we very much worked over the next 3 to 6 months to get yourself from below the line to sort of see it in a different light, to see that experience and to get yourself above the line. And I can certainly say, for somebody working outside of it and seeing you changing and transitioning into the world of business, I think it crosses over with people that maybe have left the business and now gone off to start on their own, where you are the SME, you are the sort of expert, you are the driver behind that business, and you've got to make it work. And I think the way we can approach realize that actually it's more about working out sometimes what we don't want and what we're not good at. And so not having the fear of changing and adapting our approach, if that makes sense, in terms of moving forward. That I remember, I mean, we started, it was actually Monday just gone, our company Pronoctis, which is the parent company of Pursuit Line, we hit our 9th birthday on Monday, which is obviously a fantastic time. But we didn't start off with Pronoctis. We were actually branded something else. And that just didn't, after very quickly 6, 12, 18 months, we realized that the branding wasn't quite right, the naming wasn't right. And we had to swallow our pride a little bit and don't be scared to change it. So that, I think, is another example of, even though it took us a bit of time to get above the line and realize, well, actually, let's go and see what the market's saying right now and seeing what the change is. So moving on then, Ed, obviously it's all well and good being above or below the line, as we say in one of our sort of methods, if you like, or principles. But realistically, I think it talks about understanding the rules of life. And I know we talk about these regularly. Do you want to quickly go through your understanding of what the rules of life are?
Yeah, absolutely. So a long time ago, when I was, I guess, starting to sort of like make my way in the world of elite cycling, there was a well-known psychiatrist called Professor Steve Peters, who went on to be one of the most sought-after fellas in the world of high-performance sport. And I can't remember exactly what I was complaining about or moaning about when I went to see him. So I went to see the psychiatrist, and I complained about something, and I said, it's not fair. And at that point, I kind of expected him to stand up and give me a pat on the head. But he stood up, walked over to the whiteboard, and he wrote down 3 things. Life's unfair. There's no guarantees. The goalposts move. And I remember thinking at the time that that's a hard lesson, and that wasn't what I was expecting. But in hindsight, I think that's some of the best advice I've ever had. And, we saw it in coronavirus. I've seen it in my career, through injuries and back injuries and surgeries and things like that. And, whilst there's this innate sort of wantiness to be able to sort of predict the future and say, right, this is where we're going, nobody knows. And the goalposts do move, and there aren't any guarantees. But that's a positive thing. If you can get your head around that, then it somewhat prepares you for everything life can throw. For me, the best example was, when I was preparing for the Olympics in Rio. It was only 9 months out. Again, everything was going good on the way up to Rio, and we had every reason to believe at that point that we were odds-on favourites. And yeah, just out of the blue, really, I'll keep a very long story short. We had a crash in the Tour of Britain. Things sort of went from bad to worse, and a month later we were under the operating table. And with 9 months to go, I remember I was lying on the floor in my kitchen, and my agent, who's probably on the line now, came round with a bag of Percy pigs from M&S, while the rest of the team was flying out to Tenerife for the training camp. And my training plan for that day was to walk to the local post box, which is about 50 meters away from the door. And at that point in time, you've got to accept very quickly the goalposts have moved. And then without dwelling on that too much, you've quite quickly got to put that aside and be like, right, we've got a dream here to get back to the Olympics in Rio in 9 months' time. But rather than thinking about the dream, let's think about some pragmatic, logical, thought through, attainable steps that you can do to sort of see out this process, if that makes sense. So rather than getting caught up with the emotion and the frustration of goalposts moving, just say, right, I can't guarantee that I'm going to win the Olympics in 9 months' time, but I can guarantee that I'm going to eat 5 fruit and veg a day. I'm going to sleep 9 hours a day. I'm going to be on the phone to the physio every single day of my life. Same with a coach. And, you do what you do. You do some research. You work in an altitude chamber. You do everything you possibly can, and it'll either happen or it won't.
Yeah, definitely. I can hear people on the court. Well, I can't. I can imagine people laughing. 9 hours sleep, eh? 9 hours sleep. How'd you do that? How'd you get 5 veg in a day? But it is, and you can look at all sorts of podcasts and books, performance books out there, and they all say the same things, albeit in different language. And it's about doing those fundamentals, isn't it? Or the world class basics seems to be the buzzwords flying around at the minute. It's really, really important. And I think that, even down to my background when I was in the military, we always had this term of test and adjust, test and adjust, test and adjust. And that's a never-ending story, because everything's something changing. As soon as you change one thing, it changes a load of things. So that ability to test and adjust, or one of the memes on LinkedIn this afternoon might be adapt and overcome, because that's what it is all about. And the ones that sort of get through it quicker and keep that level of motivation and dedication, that willingness to learn and accepting and understanding the rules of life, I think really, really makes a difference. So moving on with that then, Ed, I think you've got to think differently around these situations. You definitely did. You've got to reframe the situation. So when you're understanding where you're at and you're self-regulating and we're understanding the rules of life, I think a really helpful question that I ask sometimes is, what's the opposite of my thoughts? What could be the opposite of this? Or what if the opposite was true? So, for example, if I start catastrophizing around the business because we've had a poor cash flow month, or that contract's been cancelled, or the world's changed again, or the Bank of England's base rate's gone up again, I think about, well, what's the opportunity now? Because I think the byproduct of a challenge is that it always brings new opportunities, and that's I'm going to put leverage there and focus on the new challenges. They might not be what you were thinking yesterday, but every time we can move quicker and be first or second to market, ideally, it creates that sort of competitive advantage. Ed, I don't know what your thoughts on reframing are.
Yeah, exactly that. So very simplistically, reframing in my head is simply about bringing a different belief set to the same situation. So again, to try and think of an example, I was working with you at this point, Phil, and I don't know if you can remember back to 2018. And I was due to fly out to a big road race out in Australia at the start of the year. First big training camp followed by the first big race. And in my whole world was kind of falling apart, really. The team had pulled out sponsorship a few months later. I had family problems, girlfriend problems. I mean, that was the last of my problems, to be honest. And then literally a few days before we flew out, one of our teammates got run over by a car, died on the road before the ambulance got to him. And of course, at that point in time, it's quite easy to have a belief set that you don't want to be there or do this anymore. And, the outcome of that is that you feel miserable, and life's not a particularly pleasant place. But as you mentioned, if you look hard enough, and to be fair, if you can help someone think this way, you can bring a different belief set to that. So, after speaking to yourself, Phil, and a couple of others, it was like, you know what? We can't change the past, but what we can do is make the most of this. We can go out there, do our best to get new sponsors for the team. You can do your best to fly the flag for people that might not have been around anymore, for their friends, for their family. You can fly the flag for cycle safety or whatever it is, and try and represent that, and try and put yourself in a position where you've got a voice so you can shout about it. And all of a sudden, the outcome was that you kind of feel empowered, you feel inspired, and it feels like you want to be a go-getter again and get out of bed and do your thing. So I'm not sure if I could have described that any different, but I certainly felt at that point in time that I had a very different belief set to essentially what was the same situation. And I was very much happier for it.
Yeah, and I think, again, typical modesty of you, Ed. I'll just finish the story off because I know what you like. So it was a catastrophic event with a road traffic accident out in Australia, and it was the day. As a teammate, you were flying out to race. Then it was a decision whether does the team race out of respect for the family, and the collective decision was no, we're going to go and race. And not only did you go and win the first stage, Ed, and lift that jersey and stand on the podium, on behalf of your good teammate there, but also you then all got involved in a road traffic campaign in terms of road awareness and road safety. So a lot of positives come out of there in a very, very difficult situation. And I think, again, that's a lesson for all of us, really, and what you can do when the time's right and when the emotions are at the same, have calmed down a little bit, for sure. So with that, what I find sometimes is when we're up against a challenge, we end up freezing. So there's a difference between stopping and sort of critically analyzing your information and your data. But what tends to hold people back is this paralysis by analysis or inaction. Now, there's a very simple sort of decision-making matrix we utilize, but and the fundamental truth is that only when we make decisions and take action do we start getting feedback. That feedback is telling us if it's right or wrong what we're doing. If we're taking inaction, we're not getting any feedback, then we don't know. So actually we start entrapping ourselves below the line, Ed. And I know that, let's be honest, some of the times we work together that, sometimes, your way of processing massive disappointment was to go and hide away in your man cave there. But my greatest claim to success with you was I got your little sort of your bad days from 6 or 7 days of being locked away in your man cave by sheer disappointment to 2 days. So that's my measures of success. What about you, Ed? What's your thoughts on this regarding taking action when maybe you're thinking of not?
Yeah, first of all, again, like taking action, being proactive. Every performance book or podcast you'll read or listen to has always got an element of being proactive. And I mean, you know this, Phil, but this is probably one of my biggest weaknesses. I'm a massive overthinker, and the amount of, like you've said, like amount of times things didn't go my way, and I'd be sort of down here next door, just sat on a sofa, going over things again and again and again in my head, and also it almost like paralyzes me. The overthinking, particularly in retirement now, has been an interesting period, as it is for any athlete, and it's so easy to kind of sit there like weighing up your options, like what are the pros of this situation, what are the cons of this situation. I think sometimes, there's this quote, isn't it, that fear kills more dreams than failure ever will. And I think sometimes you've just got to say, right, well, here's the pros, here are the cons. Let's make a decision. Doesn't matter if it's wrong or right decision. Let's just do it. And then all of a sudden, you have a bit more information coming in. Is this for you? Is this not for you? Do you enjoy this? Do you hate this? And I think, like a lot of the very successful people I've ever come across, be it cyclists or managers, leaders, they are proactive. They just crack on. They'll gather information, process it very quickly, make a decision, and it's been an interesting one, and I think about this one a lot. And particularly in retirement, as I mentioned, I've done a variety of things. I've sort of gone back into the British Cycling Circle as a performance consultant with Phil and British Triathlon and things like that. And, you're quite often sort of struck with imposter syndrome and things like that when you're in there with your chinos and your polo shirt on instead of your tracksuit. But No, I think being proactive is one of, if not the most important high performance principles out there.
Yeah, and I think that ties in really nicely with our last little slide, just to put it up, is I think the people that are on the call now or watching this later on recorded on the YouTube channel is the fact that you're already being proactive, the fact that you're here and you're willing to listen and you're willing to think. It may even be confirming things that you already know, or you're learning something new, and asking for help or seeking help. There's so much content out there now, that's some fantastic stuff. Just validate it is my top tip. So if you need a coach, go and find a coach, validate it. Obviously do your research, make sure it's all okay. If you've got a business mentor, go and utilize them, use the expertise. And I know there's a huge link there with GoDaddy, and this isn't a plug from me. We physically have used GoDaddy for our Pursuit Line website. We physically helped them utilize them, on their online chat. They've been fantastic for us. And I've done a little bit of work. It's really simple to use on our website, but gets to the point where the technical advances are too high for me. Rather than researching and spending 6 or 8 hours on tutorials, I just jumped on the chat box and off we went. And within about 5 or 10 minutes, it was sorted. So just be above the line, be curious, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Right, I'm conscious of time. We're going to wrap our little bit up here. Please stay on the line and come along. We'll do our best to answer your questions. But for now, cheers, Ed, and I'll hand you back to the GoDaddy team.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, Ed and Phil. That was great and really inspiring. I would say for me, I'm definitely guilty of being an overthinker. So the tip that you guys shared on being proactive is definitely something that I'll take on board for sure. Feel free to share in the chat box on your screen any key points from this segment that really resonated with you. It'd be great to share with everybody else. And of course, if you have any specific questions for Ed and Phil, as I said, they'll be back later to answer them. So feel free to keep posting them in the Q&A function too. So now that we're feeling motivated and ready to take action, I hope you are too. Let's move on to how you can level up your business online. I'm pleased to welcome Samuel Wade, one of our in-house GoDaddy experts, who is going to share some top tips and tricks for improving your website and overall web presence to get you more customers. Samuel will be back again also for the Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions for Samuel, feel free to put those in the chat box also. And with that, I'll hand over to you, Samuel.
Wow, thank you very much, Abby. That was great to hear from Ed and Phil as well. So for the rest of this, what we'll be doing is talking about taking your business to the next level with GoDaddy. Just to give you a little bit of background on myself, I've been with GoDaddy for about 2 years. I'm currently a supervisor, monitoring several other guides on the phones. However, I did start on the phones myself, which means that I actually got to see a lot of businesses take from the start throughout their journey to the end as well. So I'm hoping to share a little bit of my insight with all of you guys this morning. It's not quite the afternoon yet. I almost said this afternoon. So just quickly, in a world of 1.4 billion websites, how do you direct people to your site over others? So very important key steps to take here. We've got the big scary term here that we're going to go to first of search engine optimization, or SEO. I'm sure you've all heard this before, but we'll definitely look into this a little bit later on. Social media marketing. Everyone knows what a social media network is at this point. How do we get our name out there using those tools? Email marketing. I think we've all kind of gone past the days of leafleting a little bit. I'm sure leafleting still has its place, but in the modern age, when people are at home a little bit more, we do want to look into email marketing a bit more. Blogging, absolutely. More insight in that than you'd think with blogging, not just for people who want to get famous on YouTube or become a journalist. And site security, a very, very overlooked part of getting your website out there. So before we carry on, I've got a question for all of you here. So which of these areas do you feel the least confident in? So please post your answers using our chat. Search engine optimization, or SEO, social media marketing, email marketing, branding, blogging, or site security. There's a lot of difference in those. It looks like we've got a lot for search engine optimization. It's a big scary term. In a lot of cases, don't worry, we will go through it as well. Okay, Great. So it looks like, yes, absolutely search engine optimization. A little bit for blogging there as well. Great. Search engine optimization seems to be the big one. Okay, so let's have a look into this. Let's start with SEO. So SEO, search engine optimization. In the biggest and easiest way I can describe this is when you are looking for a business online, how do you get yourself up there? How do you get found over other people? So very quickly, keyword research. Essentially, people are looking for certain services. They are looking for a plumber in Derby, where I'm based. We're looking for a cat sitter for when we go on holiday. We are looking for a web designer. We are looking for, going back to Edinburgh, we're looking for a cyclist. Might be, you'd be amazed at what people are looking for. Generally, this is where your research needs to come in. What are people looking for? Online tools. There's a plethora of online tools that we can use for SEO. Doesn't mean you have to do the research yourself, and I will come back to this later on. Link building. Very, very briefly with link building. Google, I found out Baidu is the second highest used search engine. Ask, Bing, all of these guys are going to recommend you. But very simply, if other websites are recommending you as well, then we've got several layers of proof. Link building is effectively, are you pointing out other people? And are those other people pointing out you in return? How many people trust you? This is where we want to link to different businesses at this point. Online directories, Yelp, everything like this. We have gone past the pages, past the days of the yellow pages at this point. I believe the last one that I saw was purple anyway, so it may not be very useful anymore. Online directories are where people are going to find you. Even things like Google Maps, where people are just searching on Google Maps and your list of businesses come up. Benefits of a blog. So we're going to go into this a little bit more because this does tie into featured snippets. But people sometimes they will just search for entire sentences. I'm probably not the only one in this. Is when I've forgotten the line of a song or forgotten the name of a song, I should say. Sorry, I'm searching up lyrics to the name of the song. I'm not searching up the title of the song because the lyrics are printed online somewhere. I can then find that and the name of the song. This is effectively the benefits of a blog. And more specifically, we now have a term for this. So I'm sure you've all seen this online, is a featured snippet. So if you are, back in the days of Ask Jeeves, when we were searching, what's the solution to this maths equation? Things along those lines. We were asking Jeeves. You can do this on all the search engines now. And this is what a featured snippet is when you are looking for the answer to your question, what will probably come up is a small paragraph at the top. If you have a blog that talks about the answer to that question or talks about what they want to find the solution to, they will be directed to your website. So they're usually just a few sentences, bullet points, very clear. But if we don't have that as part of a blog or as part of the website, people will not find you as easily as they do for other people. It's why places like Wikipedia come up so frequently, because there are entire pages of information. Google can go through that and recommend that website to other people. For your business, you want that as part of your website. So I cannot understate the importance of having a blog as part of your website as well. So, next scary topic, social media. So choosing the right platform. I mean, this is not, we have to be very careful with this. We don't want to generalize, but generally speaking, certain generations of people will more likely be using Facebook than, let's say, TikTok or Instagram or things of those nature. For your target audience, choosing the right platform is important, and then choosing the topics that we put on those social media platforms is also very, very important. There are a plethora of different platforms that we can use. I would say, I'm sure many of you would agree with this as well, Facebook is one of the biggest ones just because of the length of the posts, going back to our blog. information, the links to the post that we can put on there. It's very clear, it's very precise. We can have events on there. We can even sell on there if we'd want to, although I'll go over that in a second a little bit more. But Facebook tends to be one of the most populous, but do not underestimate other social media platforms as well. I don't want to keep you guys too long with all of this information, but what I want to kind of do here is I want to skip to the end a little bit. Ed and Phil brought this up fantastically earlier. Websites and marketing, one of the biggest and most important tools that GoDaddy provide to our customers. A lot of the guesswork of everything that I've just spoken to you about, writing blogs, creating links, including keywords in your website, all of that is given to you in our social media tool, which is called marketing. So not only do we give you the tool to build a website, but we will give you a tool that tells you how to build a website properly. So many people will start building a website and they will just leave it up there with a static bit of information. Peek behind the curtain here, guys. That doesn't work. Just having a website is not great. I'm going to give you a really big analogy for this. If you pay for a gym membership, it does not mean you get the six-pack. You have to go in, you have to make updates. If you're going in regularly, you're going to get there. If you're going in with a personal trainer, you are going to get there even faster. This is where marketing comes in for your website. I cannot underestimate the importance of this. And if there's any more other questions about that, please feel to fire them out later on. Email marketing. Now, the reason that I have put this after everything else is very simply, you want to have people attracted to your business. We can reach out to them with email marketing. It's important that you are branded correctly. It's important that people know you're a business. I'm sure many of you have seen on the side of the vans, not speaking badly about any email addresses with Gmail or Hotmail, but there is a big difference if we are, for example, Bob at bobsbusiness.com as opposed to bob3672 at gmail.co.uk. There is a big difference between the two. People are much more likely to trust you if you are branded accordingly. Furthermore, this email, we need to bring people to our website, but only if the website is going to keep them there and keep them interested. This is where the combination of SEO and email marketing come in. We email them, we make sure it looks great, looks interesting, gets all the key information, and then we bring them to the website where all the information is clear. We've got social proof with our links. We've got a blog talking about every minute thing that then links to some of our products that we can then sell, and then we get a new customer. I cannot, and again, GoDaddy's digital marketing suite, this is an expansion on what we spoke about earlier. I cannot underestimate the importance and how easy it is to use these tools, even with no website experience whatsoever. Just to follow on, and finally, just to follow on from that point, as I spoke to you before, I am a supervisor with GoDaddy. I run a team of specialists that primarily help out with technical issues. However, all of our guides are trained to help you. Our guides are trained to ask questions. Our guides are trained to take an interest in you. If you are not sure about anything along the way, they are trained to make sure you go away with your questions answered. Again, this is teaching a man to fish, not just giving you the fish. We want to make sure you go away and you know what your next steps are. Please do not hesitate to give us a call. Please do not hesitate to ask any question that you would like. I cannot understate the importance of SEO. Having a website is important, but having a good website is the difference between you succeeding in your business and you not succeeding. I hope that helps. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Samuel. That was really useful. If you run a B2B business and are looking to reach a wider audience, GoDaddy Marketing could be the ideal partner for you. As a thank you for attending this webinar, they're offering 20% off their marketing services. Just visit the link in the chat and use the code GoDaddyWeb at the checkout. We will now welcome back Ed, Phil, and Samuel to answer questions from you all. Welcome, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us today again. So if there's anything that you'd like to ask, please feel free to send them in the chat box function. We'll do our best to answer as many as we can. And if we don't get to them today, we'll come back to you as soon as possible after the webinar. So we've already had a few questions in. Thank you all for submitting them. The first question is to Ed and Phil. Question is, I've been told to fake it till I make it while my business is starting out. Is this the right approach?
Whoa, do you want me to go first, Phil, or do you want to tackle this first? Because I've got an opinion.
Go on, then. You go first.
So, fake it till you make it. In my head, like every individual, every team has an identity, which is based on a foundation of its values. And this aren't like the facts of life, like the goalpost moving. There's no right and wrong when it comes to people's values or a team's values. But I was listening to a podcast the other day with Toto Wolff, and he said the three things he looks for in his team: honesty, he wants people to tell the truth, and no BS. And I think that probably tells you where my answer is going to lie. Fake it till you make it. Depends what you value. If you value honesty, integrity, probably long-term success, credibility, good rapport with your customers, I'd suggest it's probably not the right thing to do. Perhaps if you value a false image or easy wins or maybe short-term gains, there's nothing wrong with that. Then maybe there is an element of that. But my initial impression is no. Just be honest.
Yeah, I think and understand where that quote come from. So it's been around probably 30 or 40 years, but it really sort of got brought back into the mainstream media and on social media probably about 10, 11 years ago, which is quite scary. There's a professor from America called Amy Cuddy that did a TED talk around fake it till you make it, actually. And what she was actually talking about was understanding and trying to regulate our body. So we've got a sympathetic and parasympathetic system, one that's really designed for flight and freeze, flight and flight, and the other one's still about peace and calm time. And what she was saying was that basically, if you're going to go into a big pitch or a big meeting, our emotions and our thoughts can run away from us, and we can override that by changing our body position, changing our self-talk and regulating it. And just by doing that, you're trying to override it. You're trying to fake, so basically overpower it. So that's what she meant by it. And it just seems to be that everyone just thinks that you've got to be a liar and not be true to yourself. Now, what I'd say is that if you feel like you need to fake it, then there's an element of there's a gap somewhere in your approach. There's either a gap in your process, there's either a gap in your individual confidence, for example, or in your pitch. So I would say go and focus on the process, go and speak to people, get some help and support to fill those gaps or discover what those gaps are. You will naturally feel more confident, more composed going forward anyway. So I think understanding where that quote come from is really important, but realistically find out those gaps, bridge those gaps, and then we can move on more aligned.
Thanks, guys. That was a really great response. Hopefully that answered your question. The next question that we have is for Samuel. I'm sure quite a few people would like the answer to this. How much time should I spend on SEO? Is it something you do once or something you have to tweak every day?
Okay, great. So this is where I like the exercise analogy as well, and I'm sure Ed and Phil will agree with me on this. We don't turn up to the gym once and get in shape. It is a very simple way of putting this. Yes, it is something that we need to tweak as regularly as possible. Things change. What are people searching for? Have interests changed? Have you expanded your reach and your market? Are you reaching more people? I would say, as a really simple analogy for that, the people that exercise 7 days a week are in better shape than the people who exercise once and leave it there. Now, obviously, you can exercise cleverly and you can use your resources and you can do this in the right way, and you will get more success than someone that does it badly 7 days a row. But again, SEO is not a one-time thing. It really does take a little bit of commitment. The results that you can get back from it are fantastic.
Thank you, Sam. So a lesson in SEO and also personal fitness as well. Thank you. The next question that we have is for Ed. Ed, they say comparison can be the thief of joy. How do you manage consistency of thinking? Do you have any tips to share for dealing with negative self-belief?
Yeah, man, the world of sport is literally, you stand on top of a podium if you have a good day at the office, and it's not that easy to kind of disassociate yourself with the fact that you're constantly being compared to others. You'll literally get on a bike and ride around a track. You do a 4-minute effort, and the 4-minute effort, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of data points pulled off it in terms of your aerodynamic data, your power, your how well you conform to the ideal line on the track, what your changes look like, things like that. And you'll sit down and you pick apart, for every 4-minute effort, you'll probably spend 40 minutes dissecting it. And it's so easy to sit there amongst your teammates and feel like quite vulnerable about where you sit in a certain theoretical pecking order. I mean, how do you cope with that? You just think about the big picture, I think. And, if you really zoom out from the situation, and if you're having a conversation with your great-great-grandkids, and, one of your great-great-grandkids asked you, how important is it that I put on my skin suit and ride around this big wooden track better than anybody else? You'd laugh them out of the room, I think the big picture is quite a settling thing when it comes to comparison. And also the other thing is like systems and processes. Don't get caught up in comparing yourself to other people or how other people are doing. Just keep bringing your thoughts back to like systems and processes on how you can be more effective at your job. And I think if you do that, it's like if somebody says, don't think about the pink elephant. Phil tells me this. First thing you do is you think about the pink elephant. Don't compare yourself to others. First thing you do is you compare yourself to others. But if you think about systems and processes, you think about that. And it sort of distracts you from the sort of daily comparison that you don't have to engage in.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ed. Hopefully that answers your question and it's useful for everybody on the call. Next question that we have, I think we've got time for a few more, is for Samuel. So the question is, I know social media is important, but I really don't have time for it. What should I do?
Fantastic. So again, I think I spoke about this a little bit earlier. Prioritize. At this point, where is your target audience primarily? What are they using? What's their social media platform? What I will say, I'm going to be a bit of an advocate for this as well, is this is where a lot of the tools that you can use do come in. There are multiple tools that can let you post on multiple different platforms at once as well. So you're doing one post on all the platforms that you're on. But my biggest bit of advice really is focus on the one platform that you feel like will have the most impact on everything that you're doing. If you're ever unsure about what to write as well, this is also where certain tools can come in and help you create the posts. Again, social media, the digital marketing tools that we have will literally tell you if this verbiage or this phrasing is good or bad, and if this is going to attract attention. But the biggest thing I guess is my tip for social media is use it as a tool, but focus on the one that you feel like is going to have the most impact, and focus on the one that is going to draw the people to your website above all other websites. We want people making purchases through your site, through your shop. We want them interacting with you, not with you via Facebook, not with you via eBay, not with you via Etsy, where we take little bits of commission and things like this. The whole goal is to bring them to your front door so they interact with you. And I think when it comes to social media, focus on the one, but focus on the fact you want to bring them to your front door.
Thanks, Samuel. And just to add to that question, how often would you say that somebody should post on social media? Would it be every day?
I think the more often that you can do anything when it comes to SEO is the more that you're going to see the most impact. Sometimes the post may not catch as much attention as others. Sometimes the post will catch lots of attention, but it doesn't matter. if they're good or bad, if we're doing it very, very frequently at this point. Ideally, you do want quality over quantity, but quantity does still work when it comes to social media.
Thanks, Samuel. Okay, I have a question here for Ed and Phil. Might be a little bit controversial, but I'm sure a lot of people in partnerships can relate. What happens if you want to learn, but your business partner thinks they know everything there is to know already? How do you strike a balance?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? And yeah, it's always difficult, especially when you're in sort of business together and you've got that awkward conversation around whether it's expenditure or target audience. It's all about the principles of high performance within an organization. Is we have this acronym called TAA. So we need to have trust. So we trust each other's sort of judgment, our decision making, and the fact that we're then aligned. So we're both pulling in the same direction, or the group of us as business owners are aligned. And then the last A is autonomy. So once we've got trust and we're aligned to a goal, we've got the autonomy to drive the business forward. So fundamentally, we need to sit down and have this frank conversation, I think, with an individual. And more often than not, people think that, from my perspective, that as a coach, you can be a little bit pink and fluffy. But actually, if I told you some of the stories of some of my coaching interactions with some people, I've been really direct. So there's an indirect and a direct approach to conversations. Indirect being facilitative, asking questions, guiding people to a certain maybe solution. And then there's direct of going, oh, no, this is becoming a problem for me. We need to have a conversation because it's actually running the risk. And I want to make sure that my fears are allayed or voiced. What I have found is that a lot of sort of people in business is they don't front up to it. They don't have these open and honest conversations about how they're feeling and how the behavior impacts each other. Then they don't do anything about it. And then 6, 12, 18 months, a couple of years later, it comes to the point where relationships are broken. So I think it's about open, honest and frank conversations, but also providing some evidence of maybe when they've been wrong, but don't do it when they're emotionally charged. Do it when everything's going well. So for example, if you've won a piece of work or they've won a piece of work, going, brilliant, it's really good. I'm glad you did that. And on top of that, I think if we did this would have been better, rather than, but you still did that, because that becomes accusational. And it leads on to another question there, actually, just because we got short time, is how do we spot if we're below the line, but we're also committed to being right? That's all about being consciously aware of what's going on. So if I'm doubling down of I'm right, we're doing it my way or the highway, that means we're actually below the line. If you're consciously aware of going, right, I've processed it, I've analyzed it, I think that is the right decision. And then you start thinking about the way you can present it and influencing other people to get on board with your line of thinking, that is above the line. That's being proactive. When we double down just because we think it's our right and it's our way or the highway, that's the difference there. You can be committed to being right above the line. It's what you choose to do with it after.
Yeah, great answer as always, Phil. And I guess the only thing I can add to that is sometimes a bit of positive conflict can be a good thing. It's good that you might have a different opinion to you. So embrace it. This is not necessarily a terrible thing. And there's a performance author called Stephen Covey. And, Phil talked about, if somebody's emotionally charged, it's not a great time to have a conversation with them. And this has worked really well in my experience, in terms of emotionally disarming someone. If you go into a conversation with a real sort of willingness to understand their point of view first, then all of a sudden it really sort of emotionally disarms them. I believe the sort of principle is seek to understand before seeking to be understood. Then all of a sudden you might find that the sort of the barriers go down between you, and you can just have a nice, open, honest conversation and learn a little bit from the positive conflict, hopefully.
Yeah, questions are the answer. So if you've got a business partner that always thinks they're right, you need to start asking questions around their thinking, so and not accusationally. So, all right, okay, that sounds interesting idea. Tell me a little bit more about your thinking. Tell me about the process. How have you come to that? Because actually, you might be wrong. You just fill in the blanks in of what their concerns were. So, better conversations, better relationships, a little bit of positive conflict. That's how we progress and move forward.
Thanks, Ed and Phil. Really great answer to that question. And hopefully it will help any potential conflicts that may arise. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. Thank you to everyone who submitted the questions. And thank you so much to our speakers, Ed, Phil, and Samuel. It's been a really interesting morning. And thank you all for joining us. We know how busy you are, and we hope you found the session interesting and helpful. For more expert guidance and advice, check out our dedicated content hub. The link is now in the chat. If you have a couple of minutes to complete our post-event survey, we would be really grateful. There'll be a link in our follow-up emails. It will help us to move on to future events in the series. We hope this session has left you feeling motivated and excited to take the next step on your business journey. For a little more inspiration, we'd like to share one of our customer stories with you. Meet Catherine, founder of Bobcat Gallery.
So, there was this GoDaddy customer, right?
I'm Catherine Sweets. I am the founder of Bobcat Gallery, and I am focused on affordable art for all. The website is my business. Without it, I wouldn't be here. Everything I do is funneled through that. It's opened so many doors to new collaborations, to new customers, to new artists. I've worked with an awful lot of different website builders over the years, and GoDaddy is, quite honestly, it's the most simple to use. It's a really intuitive website builder. It comes with built-in marketing tools, and it's also really cost-effective. For me, obviously, the visuals are really important, and there's some really nice features in there that can make that pop. You have to believe in yourself. Feel the fear, do it anyway. My passion is connecting people with the art that they love.
For the help and tools you need to grow online, GoDaddy.
Well, that's everything from us today. We wish you the best of luck on your business journey, and we hope to see many of you again at our next webinar on Tuesday, the 28th of March, where we'll be speaking to real GoDaddy customers to find out their experience of running their online businesses. Thank you again for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day.